So welcome aboard on this beautiful sunny day. Yes, I can't believe I've owned this bike for 6 months. Because of the weather here in Ireland, I've done a really embarrassingly little amount of miles. How many? 2,000 kilometers. I'm just under 2,000 kilometers in 6 months. It's a sin to own a bike like this and only do that. Anyway, I know you're all dying to know what I think of this bike after 6 months. Otherwise you wouldn't be watching the video. So I think to split this up into sections is possibly the easiest way to do it. So I'm going to start with, of course, my thoughts about the thing which attracts me most to motorbikes, and indeed the thing which attracted me to this bike, and that is looks. Now, just to put this into perspective, when I got back into biking 4 years ago, a lot of people were saying, why don't you check out the Street Triples? So I did, and then I left that website very quickly because I hated the look of them 4 years ago. The horrible bulbous headlights. And in fact, I'll go as far as to say I did think that the bike back then used to be the ugliest bike on the road. Of course, this is all subjective, and I'm sorry if I'm hurting your feelings. Now, fast forward 4 years, I now think that this is potentially the most beautiful bike that I've ever seen. So when I saw it on photographs online last year, I just thought, okay, I've got to have it. So looks wise, I just think it's seriously one of the most beautiful bikes I've ever seen. And on today's roads, I feel as though I'm sort of king of the road, because in my eyes I have one of the best looking bikes there is. There you go, imagine that. I'll come on to how this bike makes it feel later on. Now with the RS, which of course this model is, I think having the rear end elevated by 20 millimeters compared to the R, I really think not only does it affect the geometry in a positive way, I think it affects the looks as well. I just think it makes the bike look that little bit more aggressive, and with the wasp eyes at the front, it looks as though it's just going to go out and attack you and sting you, and it certainly has bitten me and sucked all the pollen out of me. Oh, matron. Now let's address number 2, the engine. That power plant 765, Moto 2 derived, of course, and we as the end user, as the consumer, after all of those years of research from Triumph, investing heavily in Moto 2 and you know, refining and honing that already brilliant engine into what it is today. I mean, you know, I've pretty much said it all there. Of course, the characteristic of a triple is that most of the fun, well, a lot of the fun, is high up in the box, but that's fine. That sort of it sort of edges you on. It invites you to go up the box and sample what it has to offer for desserts, if you will. But it hasn't skipped a beat. In fact, I was doing some Garda training for my upcoming Route 66 trip recently, and in case you don't live in Ireland, Guards are the police force here. So we were doing some training with them at high speeds and low speeds as well, and during the high speed maneuvers, I mean, I was going crazy speed on this, and the bike, even in 6th gear, kept pulling and pulling and pulling. I'm not going to tell you what speeds I was doing. I was in safe hands, and I felt safe and I felt comfortable, and we were in a suitable environment doing so. I've never experienced pull on any type of bike as I have with this, but with 128 brake horsepower, then of course it's just going to scream all the way through the box. That's exactly what this does. It's unbelievable, the engine, and well, like any motorbike, in the wrong hands you're in trouble. So just be careful. The gearing is a little bit short actually, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, but 1st gear and 6th gear are the two happy places for me. So you can tootle around town in 1st gear because it's nice and long, and the engine is just, I mean, like I said earlier, it doesn't miss a beat. There is no burbling, there's no stumbling, there's no coughing. It's not lost in any gear. It's very happy sitting where it is, and it's full of confidence, this engine. It's incredible. You know, the engine is just phenomenal. Actually, on the back of that, the braking is the best braking that I've ever experienced on any bike. It's the Brembo Stylema setup with a master cylinder, so you can really fine-tune the brakes to your liking. and but you need something like stylemas on a rocket ship like this. So when I was coming home from my rider training experience last week, I was on a motorway for 6 hours. 3 hours to get there, 3 hours back, and I came home in the pouring rain on this bike and naked. I was drenched, of course I was. That's not the bike's fault. I shouldn't have taken this bike. But on the motorways at motorway speed, you know, when you're in a good sort of sporty leaning forward riding position, just to protect yourself, not to try and get any more out of the bike, as soon as you sit up, because you're running naked, that's where your simulated effective engine braking comes in. I'll call it Davy braking. Okay, next up, handling. So I've ridden it in all sorts of conditions now and on all sorts of surfaces. Now, whilst it really is a mile muncher on the motorways, obviously because it's a naked bike, I really wouldn't be using this to go very far distances, although I am getting cruise control fitted because it's a lot more comfortable and a lot more pleasant on a motorway than I was expecting. So I'm really contradicting myself here, because I am planning on going to do a few weekend jaunts because, like I say, it is so comfortable. But really, where it shines is the country roads where I live and the twisties. I mean, that's why I bought the bike, and oh my god, it does do that with flying colours. It's top of the class when it comes to that. But you know, even tootling through town as well, again, because it's so agile, so nimble, it's very happy, and again that engine comes into its own. So I think I've already mentioned there's no coughing, no burbling, no sort of hunting from the engine. Now, the other thing I made sure to do when I bought the bike, I put Michelin Road 6 tyres on. I have them on all my bikes now, swear by them, and it's fairly obvious to anybody who has ridden one of these as well. Or maybe you're a much more advanced rider than I am, but I'm a sort of middle of the road sort of rider. Not literally, but you know what I'm saying. But this bike really does make me feel that I'm a much better rider than I actually am. It really invites you to test it out, and it inspires confidence. It really does. In fact, I'll go as far as to say this bike does everything apart from knocking on your front door to see if you are coming out to play. Now, another love of mine, owning motorbikes, as you will know if you've followed me for a while, is washing my bikes. I remember reading a comment about this bike being so difficult to wash and to keep clean. To keep clean, certainly, it has its own world going on above the rear tyre, so I probably will try an extended rear mud guard to just stop all of the mud flicking up underneath the seat, because if I've been out for a day on this bike, you literally come home and there's a forest and all sorts of stuff underneath the seat. So I will try something to eliminate that. But in terms of washing the bike, I actually find it one of the easiest and one of the most rewarding bikes I've ever had to clean. Now, because it has the cast wheels, not spoked wheels, that's a breeze. One thing I did do when I got this bike is I put my own ceramic coating on it. I'll flash it up on the screen now. It's an Auto Bright product, which I use on all my bikes, readily available, and just works, you know, with really superb results. So I used that, and even now I must have washed the bike, let's say, half a dozen times in the last 6 months, and it always comes up gleaming, and you can see when I'm hosing it off after doing the sponge wash, when I'm hosing it off, you can see the water just beading off, exactly what a good coat of ceramic should be doing to a motorbike. So I would recommend that to everybody, really. And I have no doubt that has made for a much easier cleaning process. But in terms of getting into nooks and crannies, it's not a bother. The engine is pretty much all encased. There's no sort of little bits where you have to get a brush into. It's all readily accessible with your hands. So next up, ergonomics. Now, I'm 5'8". I'm 195 pounds, and for me, it's like the bike was tailor-made for me. It is a little bit on the tall side because I have a 30-inch inseam, but I don't want to get the lower seat because I prefer the padding in this seat. It's just so comfortable, and especially, like I mentioned, when I'm away on a longer trip, like the 6-hour journey I did recently, I came back and there's not many seats which make me feel as comfortable as this did. I mean, the GS, but you know, I'll always say the GS is all day comfort, and in terms of padding, this seat actually matched that. So the ergonomics riding position, obviously it's a naked, you're going to feel the full force of the wind that comes with the character of the bike. But I have said numerous times as well, whatever the bulbous headlight arrangement does on the front, you don't get a buffeting wind. It's a very smooth airflow over you, so I can't complain at all about that. In fact, so far I'm very aware that I haven't found a complaint. There is one thing though, so stick around and I shall reveal that at the end of the video. In terms of ergonomics as well, I think I wasn't expecting it to be as comfortable, so cruise control is my next accessory to get fitted. Now, moving swiftly on, last but not least actually, is how does it make me feel? That's such an important part of any bike. I can only summarize this to, or liken it to, basically cheating on my wife. Not that I've ever done that. I've been married, very happily married, for 25 years, and I've never cheated on my wife. But if I was to, I would imagine that this is what it would feel like, because I feel guilty because I dream about this bike. I lust after this bike. I'm always planning on how to see her even more, and dare I say, get out to ride her even more. I buy the bike lots of presents in terms of accessories, and she literally is my dream machine. In fact, you know that moment when you've been out for the day on the bike and you're just parking her up in the garage and you still look back just to give her that sort of admiring glance, as if to say, it won't be too long, darling, I'll see you again. Play the love music, will you? There's not many bikes have made me feel like that over the years, let me tell you, but this one, yeah, I feel a little bit guilty lusting after it the way I do. So, in fact, so much so, I'm now very keen to ride previous versions of this machine, just to see how she developed and see how she came all that way to be this wonderful human being. I mean, motorbike. It is honestly like falling in love with someone. Okay, enough lusting. It's time to reveal what I don't like about this bike. There, I found it. A stone in the front tyre. So there you have it, folks. I don't know what you were expecting at the end, but seriously, I cannot find fault at the moment. I've only had her 6 months, but I really can't find fault. I was accused recently of being a Triumph fanboy. You bet I am. This bike is amazing. So of course I'm a Triumph fanboy. I've never owned a Triumph before. In fact, I've never ridden a Triumph before this bike. So yes, I am a fanboy, 100%, but I'm also a fan of any motorcycle which ticks all of the boxes like this does for me. So not necessarily Triumph, just bloody good motorcycles. Yeah, I'm a fan of all of those. So once again, folks, thanks for tuning in. Is that a policeman? That's the only thing you gotta be careful. That's what I don't like about this bike. You've got to slow down. And it wasn't even a policeman. Oh dear God. Anyway, thanks a million for tuning in again. Same time next week on YouTube, 8 o'clock next Saturday morning. If you haven't subscribed, then please think about doing so, because I've lots of fun and thrills and hopefully no spills coming over the summer on this little beauty. In fact, I am, as I mentioned, planning on taking it much further afield. I've even bought the luggage to go on the back to enable me to do so. Alright, we'll chat soon, folks. Have a great week, everybody. Ride safe. Dave Perry, Wheelie Good TV, over and out.